Do you or does someone you know have depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, panic disorder, schizophrenia, or PTSD? The answer is most likely yes, and if so, you're probably no stranger to society's negative perceptions and treatment of those who suffer from these disorders. I'm Laura Youngblood, by the way, and welcome to From Laura's Perspective. At least 3 times a week, I post a video essay with issues such as mental health being just one of the topics thereon. Sometimes it's a current event, other times it's music, movies, television, food, business, art, history, literature, or just about anything you can think of. Anyway, today's essay is all about this idea of mental health stigma. What is it? What have the consequences of it been? What are some possible solutions to this problem? Well, let's find out. To truly tackle this problem, we need to get to the root of it, which is the things we're told and inevitably believe about mental illness. The most common of these is probably that people with mental illness are violent and crazy. However, only 3 to 5% of violent crimes are committed by people with mental illness. In fact, people with mental illness are actually 10 times more likely than those who don't have mental illness to be the victim of a violent crime. Moreover, many people with depression, anxiety, and other mental disorders are highly active and productive members of their community. Next most pervasive misconception about mental illness is that it's either the choice or the sufferer's own fault. But that is no more the case than it is with diabetes or asthma. Mental health has nothing to do with being lazy, weak, incompetent, or other character flaws. It is an actual medical condition that can be caused by anything from genetics to trauma to even just simple brain chemistry. When lies such as these are told, society believes them, and that has profound negative effects on those who suffer from mental illness. It makes it harder for them to get the treatment they need, leads to unfair treatment of them, and bars them from the opportunities they seek. But how exactly are these beliefs perpetuated in the modern era? If there's anything we've learned over the past couple years, it's that representation matters. When marginalized people are improperly represented in the movies and on TV, society assumes the worst in these people in real life, which members of the marginalized group internalize, and the mentally ill are no exception. Generally speaking, the mentally ill are portrayed in the media as either homicidal menaces or people unable to take care of themselves or contribute to society, which, as I mentioned in the previous section, is inaccurate. But let's look at some more specific examples. As recently as 2016, a horror movie called Split was made, which depicts a man with dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder, as a violent kidnapper who prefers female victims. However, the International Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation found that only 3% of those diagnosed with DID had been charged with kidnapping or other similar crimes. Speaking of DID, in Total Drama's 4th season, Total Drama Revenge of the Island, second-generation competitor Mike suffers from DID, and the whole thing is essentially made into this big joke. Mike has six distinctive personalities that are played for laughs and sometimes even used to win challenges on the titular fictional reality TV show. Perhaps the most problematic aspect of this is Mal, the evil personality who terrorizes the other competitors throughout Season 5 Total Drama All-Stars, including breaking Cameron's glasses, cheating at challenges, and lying to and manipulating Mike's girlfriend Zoe. At the end of the season, it seems that with the literal press of a button inside Mike's brain, all of Mike's alternate personalities are done away with and his DID is cured. And that's just not how mental illness works. Another example of a seemingly simple solution to mental illness can be found in the 2012 film Silver Linings Playbook. While it doesn't portray the main character with bipolar disorder as a violent menace like Split, the movie does seem to send the message that a loving relationship is the cure-all end-all to the struggles of having bipolar disorder. While having a supportive partner definitely does help, treating a mental illness usually involves a long, complicated process of medication and/or therapy. There are so many more examples of movies and TV shows that depict the experience of having a mental illness in problematic ways, but to go over all of them would take too long. And while there are many other movies and TV shows that portray them much more accurately and promote a better understanding of it, especially in recent years, the negative depictions still outweigh the positive ones. And here's what that leads to. What happens when the media casts a group of people in a negative light and the real world develops a system of negative beliefs about them based on said media? Institutions put them into practice in the form of discrimination. So how does this apply to mental illness? Well, the most notable way is when it comes to healthcare coverage. Many healthcare companies refuse coverage for some, but not all, forms of mental health treatment, but never do this with physical illness or injury. More specifically, one law prohibits federal Medicaid funding for non-elderly adults receiving psychiatric care in a treatment facility with more than 16 beds, and Medicare beneficiaries are also limited to 190 days of lifetime inpatient psychiatric hospital care. This is particularly harmful for people living with chronic serious mental illness, or SMI, who often need more than 190 days of hospital care. Just like with many other marginalized populations, the mentally ill are far more likely to be unemployed or underemployed than their neurotypical counterparts. Why? The same reason as always. Not because they're inherently unqualified to work, but because employers tend to believe that mental illness renders someone inherently incapable of doing a job, and that their symptoms make them less competent or dependable, even when this isn't necessarily the case. And even when they do get hired or promoted, 25% of people with mental illness claim that their workplace environment is unsupportive and that their employers look down on them and take them less seriously. It's been proven in the past that institutions and asylums are not the answer for any medical condition, yet many still think it is to this day, especially when it comes to mental illness. If one's symptoms are declared severe enough, such as suicidal ideation or hallucinations, they may be involuntarily sent to a hospital or other treatment facility in which they are subjected to harmful and unscientific forms of treatment. Don't be fooled by a name such as Vibra. Not all harmful institutions have a name like Cleveland Institute for the Feeble-Minded. Even for treatments that are ethical and backed by science, an individual should have a choice of if and how they receive said treatment. So what can be done so that people with mental illnesses get treated better? Well, luckily, some things are already being done. The first of these involves more accurate representation in the media, even if accurate depictions still persist. Although film and television are meant to entertain viewers, the talent behind these things have an obligation to accurately portray marginalized people in a positive light and not just use them as comedic caricatures or menacing villains. But the single most important thing we do to combat mental health stigma is education, which is exactly what I'm trying to do with this video. When the subject of mental health is a social taboo, people only have stereotypes and lies that are commonly spread to go off of. But when people talk about it more, myths are separated from fact, and people know what it actually means to have a mental illness and receive treatment for it. And when you hear someone talking negatively about mental illness, or even simply making light of it, call them out. When someone calls a moody person bipolar, calls someone who pays particularly close attention to detail OCD, or calls someone who believes something that is not true, which ironically includes those who believe and perpetuate mental health stigma, schizophrenic, when they do not actually have any of these disorders, it downplays the experience of those who actually have it and leads others to dismiss these illnesses as well. So when you see it happening, let them know that what they're doing is wrong and why. More importantly, be mindful of the language you use on this subject yourself. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm sure it wasn't a secret that there's a stigma around mental health when you first clicked on this video, but I really hope that as a result of it, you have a better sense of what it actually means, why it's problematic, and what can be done to address it. I've also broken this down on other social issues, including autism stigma and school bullying, which I've put links to up on your screen. Topics addressed in my numerous video essays include not only this, but the many different aspects of different cultures, media, nature, business, and food and drink product. So if that's what you like, check it out. Smash that subscribe button and click on the bell and turn it back so your phone goes off every time I post new content, which is at least 3 times a week.